Hi, I'm Mark Thirlwell, Director of Tea Journeys and a World Tea Judge. I'm placed here today in the wonderful Shoalhaven region, and of course the backdrop we're looking at is the Shoalhaven River, and right to my far left hand corner, if you stretch your eyes, you might just see Bundanon, the Arthur Boyd Heritage Trust there in the distance. What we really want to talk about today though is of course the alternative dairy milks. It's an explosion of interest now in the cafe industry in Australia to look and source for milks that aren't just dairy originated. So we're working with obviously Alternative Dairy Co, both the almond and oat milk, and we're not just talking about coffee today. We're talking about the second most consumed beverage in the cafe industry, and that of course is tea. So first of all, we have our oat milk, and the oat milk I love in particular because it has a natural sweetness to it, ever so slight. So when we put this and we pair it with either the English breakfast tea or the Earl Grey, I find that those tannins really work well to emulsify the flavor, really highlighting some of the best, most unique flavors that can be found within the tea itself. So I'm going to choose to do that today, both with the Earl Grey and the English breakfast tea. Today we're going to use the almond milk in particular to pair with the Bombay dry chai. I really like this particular product to work with the chai, namely because there's so many spices, so many flavors going in there. And that almond, the natural sweet almond that's ever so subtle within this milk, works really well with the spice content, and namely, in particular, with the cloves. And you'll find they marry beautifully well to each other and brings out a whole new world of flavor. Now, because we're out here in the wonderful outdoors of Australia drinking tea, what else would you do? We've brought our trusty thermos. Okay, and in it we have 95 degrees. 95 degrees in particular because I know when we're serving this tea, we're actually aiming for between 93 to 95 degrees Celsius with our water temperature. All right, let's go straight ahead and do that together. We're going to get our teas. Always for the sake of consistency, we love to tar. We also love to weigh the teas that we use. For this particular tea today, we're just using 3 grams. We're using 340 mils of water. And as I just mentioned, between 93 and 95 degrees temperature water. And we're infusing that for 2 minutes, 10 seconds. Now, while we wait for that to brew, let's just have a look at the surroundings around us right at this time. And just like all things, if we want, for the sake of argument, if we put in the milk or the tea first. Now, I personally like to put in the milk in the cup first. The tradition in China, back in ancient lands of Tibet, was to actually line the teacup, the fine porcelain, with yak butter fat, and that prevented the fine porcelain at high altitude from cracking. So let's follow that tradition. So here you are, traditional English breakfast tea served with Alternative Dairy Co oat milk. Enjoy. For the Earl Grey, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to brew it slightly differently. We're also using our oat milk to do this. So taking out our Earl Grey, we've got a slight twist on that. We call it our Roseville Grey. We add the organic rose petals to the Earl Grey flavor. You can see the natural bergamot in there as well, or the cornflower with the bergamot infused English breakfast tea blend. The brewing parameters for this one are ever so slightly different. We're using 3.5 grams of tea, just to get that lovely rich bergamot flavor coming through. And we're going to use 340 mils of water. We're brewing this also at 93 to 95 degrees Celsius, and our brewing time is 2 minutes 20. So a good little simple trick, as soon as the water hits the tea, we start our timer. Placing your lid straight on top and allowing that to fuse, almost like to incubate, to immerse those flavors and allowing those vascular bundles of the leaves to fully expand and immerse in the water. We'll leave that just for 2 minutes 20 and we'll be back with you shortly. Last but not least for today is one of my personal favorites, which is Bombay dry chai. We're going to use the almond milk for this one. And as I said, we're going to find that subtle sweetness coming through with this wonderful new oat milk that's been made for us from Alternative Dairy Co. Same thing, our brewing parameters for today on this one, again, a little different from the others. We use 3 grams of tea. We're using 340 mils of hot water, 93 to 95 degrees boiling temperature of water. And the infusion time for this one is a little lower. We're using 1 minute 55. So just as a little takeaway there, while we're waiting for this to immerse, we're going to be pouring in our water. But for a lot of cafes in the food service industry out there, they're looking at a price point almost like we would if we were sourcing coffee. But for tea, we're often looking at a price point per 500 grams or for 1 kilo. But let's always remember that generally with a serve, we're often using anything between 3 and 4.5 grams per serve. It's very minimal. So the price point per 500 grams really matters less than what ultimately has been the most important thing, is making sure our botanical or our Camellia sinensis, the tea, is fresh and we're storing it always correctly. Same as always, let's not allow that porcelain to crack. So we just add a tiny bit of milk as desired. I think it's always fun to remind ourselves that it is tea theatre. So when we come to a cafe environment, providing them with a beautiful teapot, a beautiful tea tray and service and cupware that's designed specifically for the use of tea and not for coffee is a real highlight to someone's experience. When we make a tea like this, it becomes so desirable. And we often find that when we go into a cafe, we find other people looking around the cafe and the room and saying, what's that person having? It's not always being coffee that is the go-to. Believe you me, finding that delicious cup of tea can be a highlight of one's day. Roseville Grey with Alternative Dairy Co. oat milk. Enjoy. Now for our Bombay Dry Chai, I just love the use of a mug. Like what we talk about being purposeful, both with our teaware and our cupware. Personally, I just love a mug that has all the personality, something you can hold on to with all those lovely warming spices, particularly for the colder months of the year. This one's our almond milk. And already I've got a sense of all the flavors been permeating and brewing within this chai. Bombay Dry Chai, served with Alternative Dairy Co. almond milk. Enjoy.